The first night she slept on the hardwood floor. She told herself it was temporary. Layla curled her body against the corner of the small living room, arms wrapped tightly around her knees, her breath ghosting in the dim blue light from the kitchen nightlight. No pillow, no blanket. Just a sweatshirt under her head and the stale smell of wood polish and resentment in the air. From behind the closed master bedroom door, she could hear laughter. Her cousin Amber and Amber's fiancé Darren binge-watching something loud and obnoxious on her 75-inch flat screen. The one she bought. Like everything else in this house. The house she paid the mortgage on. The house that, until 3 months ago, she was supposed to live in alone. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When Layla signed the mortgage contract a year ago, it was a huge personal win. After 5 years of working 3 jobs and skipping vacations and hair salons and birthday dinners, she had finally scrimped enough for a down payment. The house was modest, just a 3-bedroom fixer-upper on the edge of town. But it had a sunroom, a cozy kitchen, and a porch swing she'd always wanted. She moved in with nothing but determination and a dream. Her dream. Hers. That lasted about 3 months. It started when Aunt Sheila dropped by with Amber in tow. Just a visit, she said. A week or 2 at most. Amber was going through a rough time. Her last roommate was toxic. Her mental health was fragile. She needed a place to stay, and family to help her get on her feet. And who better than Layla? After all, you have all that space, and you're barely using it. Layla wasn't a monster. She said yes, and Amber never left. A month later, Darren moved in too, just for a little while so they could save for their wedding. Then came the gradual shifts. Her bathroom towels replaced with monogrammed ones for A&D, her shelf in the fridge pushed aside, and a series of passive-aggressive jokes about her loner lifestyle and quirky habits. By the end of month 2, Layla found herself nudged out of her own bedroom by the couple who wanted the master because they were paying rent now too, a rent far below market value and far below the mortgage she still covered. The 3rd month, her life was a schedule of avoidance. She ate cold leftovers late at night, worked longer hours just to delay going home, and finally gave up sleeping in the spare room after Amber's friend stayed over for a week and never left, so now she slept on the floor of her own living room. The breaking point came on a Sunday. Amber had just announced that she and Darren were planning to renovate the backyard for their engagement barbecue. She casually mentioned she'd already started tearing out the flower beds Layla had planted. Layla blinked. "You did what?" Amber scoffed, brushing her platinum blonde hair off her shoulder. "It looked dead anyway, Layla. I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but you're not really into hosting or anything. We need to make the place more couple-friendly." Darren added with a grin. "Honestly, you're lucky we're putting in the effort. You should have seen this place before we fixed it up." "Fixed it up?" Layla's jaw locked. That money they used came from her utilities fund. Amber flopped onto the couch and tossed a throw pillow behind her head. "Hey, we'll make sure the house is good enough for everyone soon enough. You just need to chill, Lay." Layla looked around. Her furniture, her paintings, her name on the deed. But her voice? Silenced. For now. That night, Layla lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling fan. It ticked like a slow metronome. She thought about the hours she worked, the birthday she skipped because she couldn't afford to eat out and cover the inspection, the moment the loan was approved and she cried in her car alone. Then she thought about Amber's voice, laughing in her bedroom. No, Not hers. The bedroom. That's when it shifted. Not just anger, not just shame, but focus. Layla got up, quietly walked into the kitchen, and retrieved the folder she had hidden above the fridge. Purchase agreement, 126 Brookside Lane. The house was hers, and she was done being quiet. Layla spent the next few days in a haze of politeness that wasn't politeness at all. It was strategy. She still smiled when she passed Amber in the hallway, still nodded when Darren offered to bring home fast food, still kept her mouth shut when they moved her yoga mat from the corner so they could test out a new ottoman they bought using her Amazon Prime account. But behind the smiles, her mind was racing. She reread every clause in her mortgage agreement, every page of her homeowner's insurance policy, every email she had exchanged with her realtor, every photo of the original space, down to the flower beds now ripped apart by Amber's Pinterest-fueled fantasies. She called her bank. She spoke with a quiet, careful attorney during her lunch break. She did it all calmly, diligently, and she kept sleeping on the floor because she needed them to stay comfortable, arrogant, unaware. On Thursday evening, Amber strutted into the kitchen in a silky robe, face glowing from a face mask. "You did RSVP to the engagement party invite, right?" she asked, sipping wine from a glass Layla had once gotten as a graduation gift. "It's in 2 weeks. Darren's parents are coming in from Maine, and everyone from work is going to be here. It's going to be amazing." Layla, seated at the small kitchen table with her laptop, looked up blankly. "I don't remember seeing an invite." Amber gasped, then laughed. "Oh my God, that's totally Darren's fault. He said he sent it to your old email or something. You're coming though, right? You have to come. You live here." Layla blinked slowly, her voice even. "Sure. I'll be there." Amber didn't notice the flicker in her tone. She never did. The next morning, Layla left earlier than usual for work, but she didn't go to the office. She drove across town to a notary, then to her attorney's office, then back to the bank. She made no dramatic declarations, no Facebook posts, no confrontations, just quiet arrangements, quiet transfers, quiet confirmations. By the end of the day, she had updated the title to reflect sole ownership. She confirmed Amber and Darren's names were nowhere. Legally, they were simply occupants, with no binding lease, not even squatters. And then she paid for a lock change service, scheduled exactly 1 hour after the party was set to start. The engagement party came quickly, faster than Layla expected. That Saturday, the house transformed into something unrecognizable. Fairy lights wrapped around the porch, balloon arches in blush and gold. A "Welcome to our forever" banner hung across the entrance like it was theirs. It made her stomach turn. Layla had cleaned everything the night before, not for the guests, but for the cameras. Her lawyer had advised her to document everything: the guest list, the number of people, the misuse of her property. If they retaliated later, it would all be on record. As people began pouring in, Layla played the part perfectly. She wore a soft smile, light makeup, a simple dress. She greeted Darren's mother with grace. She offered finger food to co-workers who never remembered her name. She even took a picture with Amber, who captioned it, "So grateful to my cousin for letting us crash her pad while we get our life started. Love you forever, Lay." Layla didn't say a word. At 7 p.m., the speeches began. Darren tapped a fork on his champagne glass and stood proudly in front of the crowd. "I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported us," he said, pulling Amber into his side. "And a special thank you to my amazing fiancé and the incredible family that took me in. Especially Layla, who opened her doors and let us call this place home." Applause. Cheers. A few sentimental tears. Amber blew a kiss to Layla from across the room. Layla smiled politely, her chest hollow. Then she checked her phone. 8 p.m. She quietly stepped out the front door and sat on the porch swing. 2 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. 3 men stepped out. Uniformed, polite, efficient. They didn't knock. They walked past the guests and straight to her. "Miss Layla Morgan?" one asked. "Yes," she said calmly, handing them a folder. Inside it, proof of ownership. A cease and desist letter. A formal notice of eviction for Amber and Darren, citing unauthorized occupancy and misuse of private property. "Would you like us to proceed?" he asked. Layla nodded once. "Yes. Let them know the party's over." The knock came at 8:03 p.m. Not the soft tap of a late guest. Not the kind of knock anyone at an engagement party expects. 3 sharp, assertive raps at the door sent a hush rippling through the living room. Amber, mid-toast with her bridesmaids, furrowed her brow. Darren glanced at her, shrugged, and went to answer it. Layla stood quietly behind the curtain of the front window, watching. The lead officer, tall, calm, clipboard in hand, spoke politely but firmly. "Are you Mr. Darren?" "Lewis? Yeah. What is this?" "You and Miss Amber Collins are currently residing here." "Well, yeah, I mean, we live here. It's our house." Behind him, a few guests chuckled awkwardly. The officer's face remained neutral. "I'm afraid that's incorrect. We're here on behalf of the property owner. You've been served." He handed over the envelope, thick, stamped, and official. Darren stared, mouth half open. "What the hell is this?" Amber emerged behind him in a satin pink jumpsuit, holding a half-full wine glass. "Babe, what's going on?" The officer handed her a duplicate envelope. "This is a formal notice of immediate removal from the premises due to unauthorized occupancy and violation of property usage. As of 8 p.m. tonight, you are no longer permitted to reside here." Guests began to murmur. "What?" Amber's voice pitched higher. "There's gotta be a mistake. We live here. I mean, yeah, it's technically Layla's house, but..." Layla stepped through the front door, arms folded, standing tall in the porch light. "No, Amber," she said. "It's not technically my house. It's legally mine, and you don't live here anymore." The silence that followed was razor sharp. Amber blinked. "Layla, what are you doing? You can't just kick us out. All our stuff is here." "Yes," Layla said evenly. "Your stuff, not your name, not your money, not your ownership, just your assumptions." Darren stepped forward. "Come on, Layla. We're family. You let us stay here. For 3 months, without a lease. Under my kindness. And you disrespected every inch of it." Someone began recording on their phone. "Is this legal?" Amber hissed, voice trembling now. Layla turned to the officer. "They'll need to collect their belongings, but they're not to stay past tonight. I've arranged for movers tomorrow. Their things will be packed and stored. But they're not sleeping here another night." The officer nodded. "I suggest you leave calmly," he told Amber and Darren. "This doesn't have to escalate." Amber's wine glass shook in her hand. "You're doing this? At our party?" "No," Layla replied. "You threw your party in my house and invited me as a courtesy. I'm ending the lie. Within 30 minutes, the guests had trickled out, some offering Layla quiet nods of support, others avoiding her eyes. One of Darren's co-workers muttered, "Damn," as he left with a cupcake still in hand. Amber sat on the bottom stair, red-eyed, texting frantically. Darren paced in the hallway, whispering on the phone to someone who never picked up. Layla stood in the doorway the whole time, composed, watching. At 9:27 p.m., the last of the guests were gone. The officer turned to Layla. "We'll confirm with your attorney that everything's been initiated per your rights. They have until midnight to leave." Layla nodded. "Thank you." As he left, Amber stood. "So that's it? You're just... what? Throwing us out into the street? After everything I did for you?" Layla tilted her head. "What did you do for me, Amber?" Amber opened her mouth, closed it, her hands curled into fists. "I needed you, and you humiliated me in front of everyone." "No," Layla said. "You humiliated yourself. I just turned on the lights." At 11:53 p.m., Darren loaded the last of their suitcases into his car. Amber didn't look back as she got in. She slammed the door. He reversed down the driveway too fast, knocking over one of the "Are Forever" signs. Layla watched from the porch swing, alone, peaceful, empowered. For the first time in months, the house was quiet, and it was hers again. The next morning, the house felt foreign. It wasn't the silence. Layla welcomed that. It was the echo, the emptiness after removal, the hollow thump of her feet on clean floors, the blank spot on the wall where Amber had mounted their live, laugh, love frame without asking, the ring left by Darren's dumbbell set on her hardwood floors. It wasn't peaceful yet. It was recovering. Like her. She moved slowly through each room with a mug of tea, reclaiming everything in quiet steps. The master bedroom door creaked open. Her old comforter was balled in a corner, her mirror smeared with makeup fingerprints. Empty wine bottles lined the windowsill. She exhaled and opened the windows. Later that day, the movers arrived, just as promised, to take the rest of Amber and Darren's boxed-up belongings to a storage facility that Layla had paid for through the end of the month. That was her line. She wouldn't stoop to pettiness. She was done bleeding for them, but she wouldn't be cruel. Still, when she handed over the box labeled Amber's skincare, she smiled faintly. She knew Amber would hate having to retrieve it herself. By Sunday afternoon, Layla had finally done what she'd been dreaming of for months. She lit a candle, sat on the newly cleaned couch, and pulled a throw blanket around herself. No raised voices, no passive-aggressive sighs, no feeling of being in someone else's way inside her own four walls, just the low hum of wind outside, and peace. Real, unfiltered peace. But freedom always leaves room for reflection. That night, Layla opened her laptop and typed something she hadn't dared write in a long time. Why do people betray family? It brought up psychology forums, Reddit confessionals, and long blogs about narcissism, entitlement, and guilt. She clicked through post after post, reading about invisible burdens, golden children, and self-worth that gets tied to silence. And, somewhere in there, she saw it. Sometimes, being the reliable one makes people forget you bleed too. She stared at that line for a long time. The following week, messages started arriving. From Aunt Sheila first. "I heard what happened. Please tell me this is just a misunderstanding. Family doesn't do this. Layla didn't reply. Then from Amber. So you're just cutting us off? Is this really the hill you want to die on? You didn't even give us time to explain. I was going through so much. Followed by silence. Then Darren texted from a different number. Hope you're happy. We've got nowhere to stay. Thanks for ruining her engagement. You're cold. Layla blocked the number, but what stung more was what came later, from her own mother. A phone call. Layla, sweetie, I've been getting calls from Sheila and the others. I didn't want to believe it. Did you really kick Amber and Darren out like that? She closed her eyes. They were living in my house, Mom. My bedroom. I was on the floor. Her mother paused, then sighed. But they're family. You could have handled it with more grace. Layla swallowed. I handled it with lawyers, because Grace stopped working months ago. There was another sigh, longer this time. You've changed. No, Layla said, her voice steady now. I just stopped pretending to be okay with being used. When the call ended, Layla didn't cry. She did the laundry, took out the trash, watered her neglected basil plant, let silence wrap around her like armor. But deep inside, a familiar ache flickered, that bittersweet space where justice doesn't feel like victory, just relief. She hadn't expected applause, but she hadn't expected isolation either. Still, being alone felt far better than being disrespected. Later that week, she met with her lawyer again, just to finalize the legal protection. They were thorough, adding notes, paperwork, proof of possession. At the end of the meeting, the lawyer asked, "Anything else you'd like to do now that things are settled?" Layla thought about it for a moment. Then she smiled. "Yeah. I'd like to start a lease application." The lawyer raised a brow. "To rent the house?" "No. To rent the other 2 bedrooms. Carefully. To someone who signs contracts. Not family." The ad went live on a quiet Tuesday morning. Bedrooms available. Beautiful home in quiet neighborhood. Clean, fully furnished, owner-occupied. Respectful professionals only. Proof of income required. References checked. Layla kept it simple, clear, and firm. No wiggle room for entitlement. No vague kindness to be misread. Just structure, boundaries, and a subtle reclaiming of what she'd always lacked. Control. The first messages rolled in that afternoon. Some were students, a few remote workers. One guy said he was a freelance spiritual energy consultant and offered crystals in exchange for discounted rent. Hard pass. But then came Zoe, a school teacher in her 30s. Calm, respectful tone. Already lived nearby but was leaving a toxic roommate situation. Had steady pay, a clean background, and references, including a current landlord who praised her. They met for coffee that Friday. Zoe was warm but grounded. She didn't overshare. She didn't act entitled. She asked intelligent questions, even brought a printed folder of her application with a list of emergency contacts and a recent credit score. Layla barely knew how to react. She smiled, grateful, and almost disoriented. By the second week of March, Zoe had moved into the first bedroom, and within days, the energy in the house shifted. The silence was still there, but this time it didn't feel lonely. It felt like space being used properly. Mornings smelled like real coffee. The hallway echoed with calm footsteps instead of slammed doors. On Sunday evening, Layla found Zoe sitting on the porch swing, reading with headphones on. She hesitated, then joined her. They didn't talk much, just shared the moment. For the first time in over a year, the house felt like a home again. But peace has a way of attracting ghosts. A week later, a car Layla hadn't seen in months pulled up across the street. Amber. She didn't get out. She sat behind the wheel for almost 20 minutes, then drove off. The next day, Layla found an envelope tucked between her front door and the frame. No stamp. No address. Inside, a single sheet of notebook paper. You didn't have to humiliate me. I was struggling. I didn't think it would go that far. You could have just asked me to leave. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought family looked out for each other. Anyway, you win. Congrats on the house. I hope it keeps you warm when you're old and alone. Layla stared at it. No apology. Just guilt shifting. Just one final passive-aggressive attempt at control, masked as vulnerability. She folded the letter once and slid it into a drawer she rarely opened. Not out of nostalgia, but documentation. Then, she poured herself a glass of wine and went back to repainting the hallway. Light sage green. Calm. Rooted. Hers. The second room took longer to fill, but eventually it did. Elena, a newly divorced paralegal with a quiet strength in her eyes and a bookshelf she built herself. Layla didn't interview her with fear. This time. She knew what she was looking for and what she would never allow again. They signed the lease. Elena moved in. The house settled deeper into a rhythm of quiet respect and shared space. Then, on a random Saturday, Layla's mother called. Again, I heard Amber's been couch surfing. Layla didn't answer. She's not doing great, sweetie. Still silence. Could you just talk to her? You two were so close as kids. Layla finally spoke, her voice flat. I was never close to her, Mom. I was just easier to use than argue with. Her mother sighed again, always sighing, always performing disappointment like it was a virtue. She's family. Layla nodded slowly. I know, but this time she didn't cry. She didn't feel guilty. She didn't waver. Because some people mistake your kindness for permission, and she'd finally revoked it. That night, Layla stood in her kitchen and looked around. The lights were soft. The space clean. Her roommates were in their rooms, peaceful. No tension in the air, no shame. No eyes watching her, waiting to criticize how she buttered her toast or folded the laundry. She walked into her master bedroom. Her bedroom. Ran her, hand across the comforter. She looked at the ceiling fan and smiled. She wasn't on the floor anymore. She was where she belonged, and soon, they'd all know it. Spring brought flowers to Layla's backyard, the ones Amber had ripped out months ago. Zoe helped her replant them. Elena built a raised herb garden by the fence. By April, the space looked nothing like the patchy, trampled mess it had been after Amber's engagement barbecue. It bloomed, peacefully, lovingly. It mirrored Layla's spirit. But healing isn't always linear. And one afternoon in mid-April, it hit again. An email popped up with the subject line, Notice. Storage locker. 114. Payment delinquent. Property scheduled for auction. She blinked. It was the facility where she'd prepaid 2 months of rent for Amber and Darren's boxes after the eviction. That grace period was over. They never claimed it, and now It was all going up for public sale. Layla stared at the screen. It should have felt satisfying. It didn't. It felt symbolic, like a final boundary, like watching a burned bridge dissolve into ash. She sipped her tea. Then she clicked view details, photos of the content sat in a digital gallery. Boxes labeled Amber, Winter, A&D, Kitchen, and one labeled simply Private. In it, Layla saw familiar objects: a vanity mirror, a cheap blender, framed photos of Amber and Darren at her kitchen table, and a notebook. The same black leather notebook Amber used to scribble ideas in while lounging in Layla's sunroom. She didn't bid. She didn't need to. Let someone else pay for their clutter. That week, Zoe noticed Layla moving differently, lighter. "You good?" she asked one evening over takeout. Layla nodded. "Yeah, just letting go of old things." Zoe smiled. "That's the best kind of spring cleaning." A few nights later, Elena knocked softly on Layla's door. "I don't mean to intrude," she said, "but I know something happened in this house before we moved in." Layla raised an eyebrow. "Oh? It's nothing bad," Elena added quickly. "Just, there's a feeling here, like it was hurt and healed, and it's stronger now." Layla looked at her for a moment, caught off guard by the accuracy. Then she chuckled. "Yeah, that's fair." "I'm just glad we're part of the healing part," Elena said. "You are," Layla said softly. "You both are." But outside the peaceful bubble of her home, echoes still moved. One day, Layla walked into her favorite cafe and ran into Darren's mother. The woman spotted her immediately and marched over, all tight curls and judgmental eyes. "Layla Morgan." "You have some nerve." Layla blinked. "Excuse me?" "My son and Amber are homeless. Do you know that? She's working retail, Darren's sleeping in a friend's garage. What kind of person puts family through that?" Layla set down her tea calmly. The kind of person who gave them 3 months of free rent, utilities, and tolerance, then watched them treat her like trash in her own home. The woman sputtered. "That was your side of the story." "I have it in writing," Layla said, "and photos, and lawyer correspondence, and video." The woman opened her mouth. Layla leaned in. "You should be more worried about the people who raised your son to take advantage of others than about the woman who finally said enough." Then she turned back to her book. The woman left in a stunned silence. Later that night, Layla laughed about it over wine with Zoe and Elena. "She really came in with her pearls clutched," Zoe said, nearly choking on her drink. "I would have paid to see her face when you said lawyer," Elena added. Layla shook her head, smiling. "You know," she said, "for the longest time, I thought I had to be the quiet one. The nice one. The one who kept the peace." "And now?" Zoe asked. "Now," Layla said, "I like being the woman they regret underestimating." It was almost surreal how fast everything faded. Amber's voice, Darren's cologne in the hallway, the slamming of cupboards. All gone, like the dust she swept up from beneath the couch one quiet Sunday morning. Layla had her rhythm now. Early, mornings in the kitchen with Zoe's humming in the background, late-night porch talks with Elena, and every Saturday dedicated to reclaiming a part of her home. A new color for the dining room, a rug in the hallway. Tiny rituals of ownership. But one morning in May, her phone lit up with a message she hadn't seen in over 6 months. Family group chat. The Morgans. She thought she'd left that thread permanently muted, but someone had added her back in and dropped a message. Uncle Greg. Hey everyone, family BBQ next Sunday at Sheila's. Let's catch up. Layla was about to ignore it when the second ping came through. Aunt Sheila. Would love to see everyone there this time. Layla, it would be good to move forward. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Then came Amber. Amber. Layla, I'm willing to be civil if you are. It's time we all grow up and let the past go. Let the past go? As if she had thrown a tantrum. As if being pushed onto her own floor was just a quirky inconvenience. She felt her stomach knot. Cousin Mike. Wait, is this the Layla thing again? Didn't she kick people out over a bedroom? She stared at that one. The laughing emoji stung more than it should have. She clicked the chat settings and hovered over Leave Group. But then she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she scrolled through years of photos in the group. Graduations she helped fund but wasn't invited to. Dinners she hosted but was cropped out of. Amber's engagement party, which had over 30 pictures posted. Not one included Layla. Then she noticed something. Her name had always been listed as Layla Morgan in the group. Everyone else had family nicknames. She was always formal. An outsider. Useful, never embraced. That night she pulled out her laptop and opened a blank document. She didn't write a rant. She didn't beg for validation. She wrote a timeline. Date of mortgage approval, date of Amber moving in, screenshots of payments, bills, Venmo receipts for groceries, never reimbursed, texts from Amber demanding furniture access codes, pictures of her on the floor. Then she wrote one line at the end. You all watched me go quiet and never asked why. I've stopped explaining myself to people who weren't listening when I was screaming in silence. She saved it as a PDF. The next day, she uploaded it into the family chat. Not with commentary, no drama, just one message. Layla, here's what really happened. Read it or don't, but stop talking about me like I'm a story you get to rewrite. And she left the group. A day later, her mom called again. I read it. Layla didn't speak. Her mother's voice was softer this time. I didn't know. It was that bad. You didn't want to know. A long pause. I'm sorry. Layla closed her eyes. That didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the floor, the cold nights, the echoes of Darren's smirk or Amber's dismissiveness. But it was something. I know, Layla said. But this time, I'm not coming to fix anything. 3 days later, a message came through from Amber, privately. You really went and dragged everyone into it? You think you're so righteous? I hope it was worth it. Layla replied only once. It was. Then she blocked her. For good. That weekend, Zoe and Elena threw a small backyard dinner for Layla. Just them. Candles in jars, fairy lights strung. Across the fence, mismatched plates, and laughter that didn't feel filtered. At one point, Elena raised a toast. To Layla, she said, for teaching us what boundaries look like, and that silence doesn't mean surrender. They clinked glasses, and under the soft hum of warm lights and healing hearts, Layla finally realized this wasn't just revenge. It was resurrection. June came with gentle heat and long golden evenings. Layla sat barefoot on the porch swing, watching the soft sway of string lights she'd installed herself. The house behind her was quiet, but not empty. Zoe was grading papers in her room. Elena was on a late video call with her paralegal team. And Layla was simply still. She didn't check her phone anymore when it buzzed. Not because no one messaged her, but because the people who mattered knew where to find her, and the ones who didn't. She'd stopped explaining herself to them long ago. That Saturday, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a simple printed wedding invitation. Amber and Darren. New date. Different location. No mention of her name. Layla laughed once, dry and low, and tossed it in the shred pile. Let them start over. Let them rewrite their own story if they had to. Because Layla no longer needed to prove herself. She already had. To the house she built. To the peace she restored, and to the woman she'd become. 2 weeks later, she finally did something she'd been putting off. She rolled out a new rug in the living room, soft cream with navy blue thread. And on top of it, she laid a bed frame, not a couch, not a mat, not a temporary solution, a real guest bed, for herself when she wanted to nap by the windows, or for someone else one day, should they deserve the space. Because Layla wasn't afraid of sharing anymore. She was just done giving to those who took without asking. On the wall above the entryway, she hung a new sign. Not live, laugh, love. Not bless this mess. Just 3 words, painted by her own hand. Earn your stay. That night, as rain gently tapped against the roof, and her roommates dozed behind closed doors, Layla stood barefoot in her master bedroom and whispered into the stillness. I'm not the girl on the floor anymore. She closed the light and slept in her bed.